Shai. How about Shemel Shai? Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai.
But understand thou for thyself, and seek out the glory for such as be like thee. For unto you is paradise opened, the tree of life is planted, the time to come is prepared, plenteousness is made ready, a city is builded, and rest is allowed. Yea, perfect goodness and wisdom. The root of evil is sealed up from you, weakness and the moth is hid from you, and corruption is fled into hell to be forgotten. Sorrows are past, and in the end eschewed the treasure of immortality. Let my soul bless Yahweh, the great King. When Jerusalem shall be built up with sapphires and emeralds and precious stones, thy walls and towers and battlements with pure gold. And the streets of Jerusalem shall be paved with beryl and carbuncle and stones of Ophir. And all her streets shall say, Alleluia, and they shall praise him, saying, Blessed be Yahweh, which have extolled it forever.
It's about time, man, because I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to get the kingdom. I'm ready to live. I'm ready to breathe fresh. I'm ready to have beautiful, pure women, okay? Not no strawberry harlots on this side. Ready to have children, man, you can vibe with, okay? Be around brothers. Be around the Lord himself, okay? I'm ready to go and visit places in the galaxy that we didn't know exist, all right? I'm ready to walk on sandy beaches, man, and explore the ocean floors. I'm ready to fly, okay? I'm ready to eat real food, okay? I'm ready to drive a chariot, man. All right, I'm ready to minister to the Lord and to be ministered to, man. Okay, I'm ready to worship Yahweh Shai in its full entirety. Okay, I'm ready for it. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. Man. I'm ready to see angels and greet angels.
Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to the younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing the word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bashim Shai, pushing the up out of here, Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Shai. All right, and what I want to get into this morning is dealing with the book of Galatians chapter 4, continuing on, all right, in the book of Galatians, and this is a heavy chapter, Apostle Paul, the Spirit was on him, to go into some heavy topics, as you had the church of Galatia, dealing with these Judaizers, they wanted to put, all right, the church under the bondage of the law, they wanted to cancel out, all right, the teachings of Yahweh, okay, via Apostle Paul, and bring the church back into bondage, okay, under the law, okay, which in this flesh, because the law is not, the law is perfect, the law is holy, the law is a great thing, okay, but in this flesh, to try to be justified by the law is bondage, okay. So the Apostle Paul, he would begin to break it down using, terminology, all right, that the church will be familiar with. Because remember, all these churches, okay, are provinces, okay, of the Greco-Roman Empire. So Apostle Paul uses, Greco-Roman, all right, analogies, okay, to drive home the point, all right, concerning, the understanding of the law, understanding of Yahweh, okay, understanding of the promise. You see, he went into, Greco-Roman customs, all right, to drive home the point, okay, using those analogies, man. So we're going to get into these things. I got some things pulled up, dealing with some customs, okay, surrounding what the Apostle Paul, was going into with these analogies, okay. So you got the book of Galatians chapter 4, okay, in verse 1. All right, so this is the book of Galatians chapter 4, verse 1. It says, think of it in this way. If a father dies, and this is in the NLT, and leaves an inheritance for his young children, those children are not much better off than slaves until they grow up, even though they actually own everything their father had. Okay? So we're going to explain, this analogy, in depth, using the chat. It said they have to obey their guardians until they reach whatever age their father set. And that's the way it was with us before Hamashiach came. We were like children. We were slaves to the basic spiritual principles, okay, of this world. You see? And it says, but when the right time came, the Most High sent his son born of a woman subject to the law, okay, showing you that how Shah was born, all right, through conception, because in order to be subjugated to that law, you have to be born of a man and a woman. Okay, he was born under the law. That's why uh they had to do the purification. Okay, was there was a law for all children conceived, all right, by seed. Okay, the children conceived by seed of men. Okay, you will have to go through their purification. All right, for Hebrew children. Certain amount of days for the men children, and a certain amount of days for the women. All right, the daughters that was born. Okay, showing you that he was born. All right, through sex, man, between Joseph and Mary. Okay, that's how he is the seed and the lineage of King David. Verse 5, it said, the Most High sent him to buy freedom for us who were slaves to the law, so that he could adopt us, okay, as his very own children. Okay, so when you go into this word adoption, let's go into this word adoption. This is the same word that's in Romans 9. Okay, and show you that the adoption was only for Israelites. We'll go there, Romans 9:4, 9:3. But when you go to this word adoption,
Strong's G 5206. We are Thesia. We are Thesia.
yep, it said the relationship which the Most High was pleased to establish between himself and the Israelites, okay, in the presence of all other nations. Okay, so the relationship which the Most High was pleased to establish between himself and Israelites in preference to all the other nations. Okay, so these letters are written to Israelites that are being adopted back in to the privileges of being sons. Okay, and this goes back into Greco-Roman customs. And the Apostle Paul, he's making great analogy when you go into it. Okay, it says now you are no longer a slave, but the Most High's own child. And since you are his child, the Most High has made you his heir. Okay, now when you go to, let's get a little history on that. Okay, so just real quick in the chat. All right, so I just asked chat for a quick overview of Galatians chapter 4 and details on ancient customs of a tutor and a schoolmaster. and Greco-Roman customs dealing with adoption and the privilege that came with it. Okay, it says here's a clear student-friendly overview, Galatians chapter 4. It says, with special focus on the Tudor schoolmaster and Greco-Roman adoption customs, which are key to understanding Paul's argument. Okay, so it said Paul explains that believers in Hamashiach are no longer spiritual children under supervision, but full heirs and sons and daughters of the Most High. He contrasts, all right, life under the law with life in Hamashiach, using illustration from everyday Greco-Roman, all right, family life. It says big idea in one sentence. It says, because of Hamashiach, believers move from slavery to sonship and from immaturity to full inheritance. Okay, so you go into said children versus heirs. It said Paul begins with an illustration. All right, his readers would immediately understand. Okay, because he writes to Israelites that came up in Greco-Roman customs. Which Paul was a citizen of Rome. So he understood the customs of the Greco-Roman Empire. The Most High, all right, Yahweh Shemal Shah customized Apostle Paul, to have the capacity to deal with these Israelite foreigners, to be able to break down, okay, the scriptures, because he was a Pharisee, so he was, he had a strict, okay, upbringing in, okay, the law, okay, in the scriptures, but then he lived, okay, amongst Greco-Roman culture. Okay, so he was set up to be that bridge, okay, to explain, all right, scriptures, all right, to Israelites that was raised up as Romans, man, as Greeks. You see? So it says meaning of the illustration. It says a child legally owns the inheritance but cannot control it yet. He lives under strict supervision until the time set by the father. Paul uses this to describe Israel under the law like a minor child, all right, believers in Hamashiach, now mature heirs, okay? Because when you try to be justified by the law, you put restraints on yourself. Okay, this is what the Apostle Paul is saying. Someone that's under schoolmasters, well, they will have restraints. You see, they wouldn't just flow. All right, they wouldn't just be. It was constant restraints. You see, and like I say, the law is perfect. The law is good. Okay, but when you want to be justified by it, you do never put restraints on yourself. And all these men, okay, that speak about the law, the law, the law. All right, they're very immature spiritually, extremely immature spiritually, man. You see, under Yahushua, we're maturing. Okay, and when we're changed and the laws are put within us, it's going to be put within mature spirits that understand the concept of the law. Okay, not just looking at the law as a checklist of things to do, but understanding the purpose of the law for ruling and governing in righteousness, man. You see, we're becoming heirs under Yahushua. Okay, the law condemned us trying to be perfected in the law, which the law was meant to point us to Yahushua. Okay, we're going to get that. It says Israel under the law like a minor child. All right, believers in Hamashiach now mature heirs. It says ancient tutors and schoolmasters. This builds directly on Galatians 3 and 24, where Paul mentions pedagogos, all right, which is tutor or guardian. It says this was not a classroom teacher, all right. The gagos, if I'm saying it right, was usually a slave or servant assigned to a freeborn child. So the law was assigned, was like a slave, okay, or servant that was assigned to a freeborn child. responsible for escorting the child to school, enforcing discipline, protecting the child's behavior and morals. Okay? So the law was to cultivate, all right, manners. Okay? It's supposed to cultivate, okay, righteousness. You see? It's supposed to cultivate discipline, patience, equity. You see? The law is supposed to instill these things in us. You see? But the problem was this flesh. Flesh was the problem. Okay? And Yahweh Shai, all right, he obeyed the law. But the main thing that Yahweh Shai did was he conquered the flesh. Okay? Because even within the law, okay, you can overindulge in things that are lawful. You see? So Yahweh Shai, he showed us how to be mature, all right, in the law, spiritually mature in the law. You know, and he didn't deal, okay, with the flesh, all right, because of the assignment he was on. You know, so he not only conquered every letter, all right, every jot and tittle of the law, okay, but he kept in check his flesh. Okay, he overcame the flesh, and this is what we're overcoming is the flesh. Okay, we're not perfect in the law. Yahweh Shai did that. Okay, and it's not we don't have the assignment to be perfect in the law. That was Yahweh Shai's assignment. All right, for the purpose of preeminence and being that perfect sacrifice, man. Okay, but we are to conquer the flesh and become mature. See, now we understand the concept of the law. Okay, it's just like you playing football or you playing any sport. You understand the playbook. You know you know what to do. All right, on this play, but then it's a step above that when you understand the concept of the play. You know to run the fade route on this play, but why are you running the fade route? Okay, so you can clear the field out. Okay, for the screen, that's coming behind that fade route. And I'm talking to football terminology for brothers that's into sports. Okay, because you can just go run through the motions and run a fade route, but then when you understand the concept of why you running this fade route, okay, why you running this slant, why you lined up wide to run this slant to give you more room. See, because you can understand, okay, I run a slant here, but then you understand, okay, I need to get wider so I can have more room for. Because now you're understanding the concept of the playbook. You can know what to do. You can know how to go through the motions. But when you understand the concept of the playbook, now you reach another level of performing. You see, the Most High, the law was getting us ready to perform as joint heirs, man. Okay? It was like children being cultivated to perform, all right, as joint heirs with Yahweh Shai. Okay? So the law was like a tutor, a schoolmaster. But then the Yahweh Shai is supposed to click, supposed to get it. Okay? Then the law is going to be put in us, and we're going to flow. We're just going to be. That's why we're not going to need to teach, man, because in the kingdom, everyone's going to be spiritually mature. Okay? It says key characteristics: authority was temporary, role was restrictive and disciplinary, purpose was preparation, not permanence. Okay? So the old covenant, the law being put on tablets, that wasn't permanent. Us trying to keep the law in this body, that wasn't permanent, man. You see? That was a temporary situation. It's temporal. You see? Because we're going to be changed. And the law is going to be within us. Okay? And the Most High, he put us in these bodies subjugated to sin. So we will hope in Yahweh Shai. Okay? So everything will point to Yahweh Shai and his sacrifice. Okay? So let's go here to Romans, give a few examples. The book of Romans 8, okay? And this is Romans 8 and 19. It said, "For all creation is waiting eagerly for the future day when the Most High will reveal, all right, who his children really are. All right, the sons of God, beginning with the sons of God, you know? So creation itself is awaiting, for the sons of God to be put back in power, man. You see, this is a big thing that's going on. This ain't, 100% cotton. And Jake tried to make the truth about having a 100% cotton t-shirt with fringes on. This is way bigger than that, man. Way bigger than that, man. Okay, that's cool. You got a 100% cotton t-shirt. Cool. It's cute. Okay. But when you look at the overall, all right, agenda of the Most High, okay, is to establish righteousness in the earth forever. We're being prepared to do that, to aid Yahushua in doing that. Okay. Verse 20 says, against his will, all creation was subjugated to the Most High's curse, but with eager hope. Let me get this in KJV. Because even when you go into 19, let's go back into it. It says, for the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of the Most High. And like I say, this creation itself, and then also, us as Israelites, man, we await to be changed, man. You see, now we have a longing to be changed. We have a longing for these new bodies. Because if we could keep the law perfect in these bodies, well, what would be the need for the new bodies? Because we would be immortal. Jake don't understand that we could keep the law perfectly, we will be immortal. Okay? But the Most High has put us in subjugation to these, chains of darkness, this flesh, these bodies, so we can have hope in the bodies to come, which were made possible through the sacrifice of Yahushua. Okay? It said, for the creature was made subject to vanity. You see, we were subjugated to vanity in these bodies, not willingly, but by reason of him who have subjugated the same in hope. Okay? So we didn't, have a choice in the matter to be in these bodies. The Most High subjugated us to these bodies, man, to vanity. So we will have hope in Yahushua and what he was getting ready to bring, man. Okay? Which is those new bodies, man. Okay? Verse 21, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of the Most High. You see that? So these bodies restrict us, okay, from our full potential in serving Yahweh Shema Shai, being the sons of God. Okay, and what Yahweh Shai did, he began, to put us on that path, all right, to the glorious liberty of the children of the Most High. The law couldn't do that. We will be constantly condemned and fall short. Okay? But Yahweh Shai, all right, he created a doable path, okay, for us to follow, man. Okay, which is to overcome the flesh, separate from this world, overcome the flesh, feed the sheep. He comes to told Peter, feed the sheep, man, teach and edify and build up the church. Okay? In righteousness, man. Separate from this world, put Yahweh Shema Shai over everything, man. Okay? Turn from idols, idolatry, and the culture that comes with it, man. Okay? It said, for we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together, okay, until now. You see? So even, the whole earth, and this is mainly speaking of the earth. In 19, it's speaking of us, but this is the one. All right. Verse 22, speaking of the earth itself, man. Because the earth is suffering under wicked rulership, man. See, the law was given to govern the earth in righteousness, man. Okay? It wasn't meant for us to boast in having the law. No, it was meant for us to govern the earth in righteousness forever. And we come to that maturity in Yahweh Shai. Okay? The law wasn't meant for us to be arguing amongst each other, tick for tack, about who keep the law the best. No, the law was meant to govern, all right, existence, beginning with the planet Earth and righteousness. Okay, the law is perfect. Verse 23 says, and not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves grown within our bodies, waiting for the adoption, okay, to wit, the redemption of our body. Okay, waiting on what? The adoption. Okay, to enjoy the privileges of a son. You see, the law will have us forever in bondage, man. Okay, because what put us in captivity? Breaking the law. Okay, but as we now getting ready to be changed, we're going to enjoy the full liberties, okay, and perks, okay, of being, all right, the sons of God. Okay, this is way bigger. All right, the 100% cotton t-shirt, man. Okay, so let's go here since I'm here in Romans. Prove who the adoption is for, cause all right, this Romans 9:3 said, "For I wish I could wish that myself were accursed for my siach, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh." Okay, according to lineage, who are Israelites, to whom pertained the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High and the promises. Man, you can close the book. If there's an argument about who salvation is for, who this book is for, Romans 9:4 kills the argument, man. If you have an argument after reading Romans 9:4, man, you all right, you arguing directly against the Most High. If you have an argument after this, man, listen what it says: who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants, old and new, and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High as priests, okay, and the promises, okay, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay. So if you argue against this, well, you don't believe nothing in the Bible. You're arguing against the Most High, okay. So you go into the word adoption; it's the same word. But just to prove that it's speaking of Israelites, okay, the same word.
Strong's G 5206. We are Thesia.
We are to see.
We are Thesia.
All right, so the relationship which the Most High was pleased to establish between himself and the Israelites in preference to all other nations, okay, his sons. All right, Most High wants his sons, all right, to grow and mature, okay, for rulership, man. Okay, he prefers Israel to rule, okay, over all other nations, man. Okay, Deuteronomy 7:6, real quick. The adoption. Okay, he said, Deuteronomy 7:6 said, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power. The Lord thy power have chosen thee." Okay, he preferred thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Okay, so these letters, these epistles in the New Testament are being written, okay, to Israelite foreigners, man, that are being adopted back in as sons, okay? They're being brought back in as sons. It's not just for anybody, all right? So that's why even when you go, let's get, I got some more in the chat. That's what I want to go back to. So like, it says, so let's go. Yep. And then when you get to the end of this, it says to remain under the law after Hamashiach is like an adult choosing to live under a babysitter. Okay? Jake is in front of Walgreens. Where your dress at, sister? You know? Where your fringes at, brother? Why you with this white woman, God? King. Simple. Okay? Jake, you know, they take the role of a babysitter. Okay? Because a woman can have the you know, a dress on and the biggest head wrap ever and be a complete demon, man. Nigga can have fringes. Nigga took the Jake in IUIC. He took the wee pick with the fringes on, man. You know, so having those fringes and this and that outward, that's childish. Okay, the inward man, that's when we begin to mature. When the inward man begins to change, and that starts through Yahweh Shai. You see, because the law is supposed to cultivate the inward man. Well, Jake had the hearts, the minds of stone, couldn't penetrate. Okay, that's why the law was written on stone, symbolic of the hardness, you know, in his flesh, man. It says, when the fullness of time had come, the Most High sent forth his son. This refers to the Most High's perfect timing. Okay, a world prepared, the world of Israel. All right, and it says, let's see. It says Yahushua came to redeem those under the law, Israelites, grant adoption as sons. Now, this is what I wanted to touch on before we get back to the precept. It says Greco-Roman adoption customs. This is one of the most powerful images in the chapter. Adoption in Roman culture, okay, very difficult, very different from modern adoption. Roman adoption was usually of adults, okay, or older youth, focused on status and inheritance, not childhood rescue. What adoption accomplished when someone was adopted, all previous debts were canceled, okay, which is what? That punishment of sin for us, okay? Man, it's heavy. You see, it said when someone was adopted, all previous debts were canceled. Old family ties were legally ended. Who is my mother? Who is my father? Who is my brother, my sister? But those that do the will. You see? Man, yeah, Paul is busting it down, man. Y'all reading this and reading. Paul is busting it down, man. You know, all through the spirit, how about Shema Shai? You know, Paul was in his bag in Galatians 4. You know, I just been like, wow, you know, just reading this whole chapter, you know, but Paul, like the spirits on Apostle Paul, to bust it down, man. You know, it says a new father's name was given. Okay? A new father's name was given. Do we not, you know, change our names? Okay, and we have to legally do it, you know, with Esau's government, because we're a government amongst ourselves, man. Okay? It says full inheritance rights were granted, status changed permanently. full inheritance rights were granted and status changed permanently. Okay? Let's get some precepts, man. You see? So now we're getting ready to enter into an inheritance, man. Under the law, we will never mature to the point of an inheritance, man. Under Yahushua, we're maturing to an inheritance, man. Okay? And their main obstacle was overcoming the flesh, not being a slave to the flesh, man. Okay? The law was the manual of not being a slave to the flesh. And Yahushua showed us that. Okay? And we have the example and it clicked. We begin, Yahushua forced maturity on the elect, man. Okay? Even as a woman, you should be maturing as what it means to be an Israelite woman, a wife. What does that mean? It's way bigger than you. Okay? You should mature way past, being selfish. Okay? Which that's cultivated here in America, man, just to be selfish is goddamn hell, man. Okay? You should be maturing into what it really means, all right, to serve your nation. Because when you serve your husband, you serving your nation. You serving your nation, you serving Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai in righteousness, man. Okay? Yahweh Shai is meant for us to mature. Okay? You see, so let's get a few precepts. Man is heavy. The concept of adoption. So going back to Galatians, let's go here. So what did Yahushua say? You see, our status is changing. Our standings, our relationship with the Heavenly Father is changing. We're becoming sons again. Okay? This is St. John 15:14. It says, "Ye are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you." And we was commanded to love the Father with all our heart, mind, and soul, love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay? And teach this word, man. Go out to the highways and byways. Men, we're commanded to do these things. Okay? And that's bringing us to what? Friend status. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth, but I have called you friends. For all things I heard of my Father I have made known unto you. Okay, so Yahweh Shah was there to change our status and mature us to friends of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. It comes with that's a different level of status, access. Okay, that's why these jakes, the law, they don't have access to the spirit. They don't have access to understanding. Okay, the fact that they're still trying to promote the law and salvation shows that they're not on the status as friends. They're not operating as sons. Okay, they're still, immature children under the schoolmaster that need to be told A, B, C. Okay, they can't operate in the spirit. You got to mature to operate in the spirit. Okay, because even though we don't keep the law perfectly, we operate in the spirit of the law. Okay, what should be done in particular situations? Okay, we don't have to pull out the Torah, you see, to make every decision. We begin to mature in the spirit to understand what decision need to be made, what righteous judgment need to be made. Okay, let's go from there real quick. Okay, I don't have to go to the Torah. To know not to commit adultery. Okay. To know not, because you might be in a situation that's not as cut and dry. Okay. You walk out you walk out the gas station. Okay. You step on the wallet. Okay. And the wallet has, ID. What should you do? You see, you know, So what you gonna go to the scriptures in that moment? Gotta be in the spirit. Okay. And you can take it in the gas station, let them know someone lost. They're wilding now. What they do with it is on them. Because we can't. But what we did in the situation, okay, that's just giving an example. Okay, because you might not be in the black and white. It's easy not to commit. It should be easy not to commit adultery, man. As far as when you're out and about. All right, you should know. Okay, you should need, say, pull out the Torah and scroll. Stretch it across the hood. What should I do? No, it's plain and dry. But then in certain situations, it ain't so cut and dry. Okay, to where you gotta be in the spirit. Okay, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in this moment according to the spirit? You see, and that's us maturing. And certain things we fail, but that's for us to, go back to the drawing board and say, okay, bet I could have did this. I could have did that. See, the spirit of Yahweh Shai has us moving like that. Okay. See, them jakes is the law is like robots, man. It's not clicking for them. They're not getting it. Okay. You online, for hours trying to find 100% cotton pants to go. You're missing the whole point. 100% cotton Reeboks, like nigga. Jake just be tripping, man. Okay. Cotton Air Force One, they're tripping, bro. All right. If you can do it, you can find it cool, but don't, that's not the standard. That's for sure. All right. Ain't no salvation coming from trying to be perfect in the law, man. We maturing in the spirit. Okay. So we can govern in righteousness and in balance with the law. Okay. So let's go here. So Wisdom of Solomon 7 and 26. It said, "For she is the brightness of the everlasting light, the unspotted mirror of the power of the Most High, and the image of His goodness." Because we're maturing into the image of the Most High's goodness, man. Okay, and being but one, she can do all things, and remaining in herself, she maketh all things new, and in all ages enter into the holy souls. She maketh them friends of the Most High and prophets, man. Okay, and this is the Holy Spirit, which is within the Holy Spirit is what? Wisdom, faith, the fear of the Lord. Okay, which is making us friends. You see, our status is changing as we're operating as the sons of God. Okay, I say you don't need to pull out the Torah, no, not to steal. Okay, you see, so no, not to to blaspheme the name of the Most High. You don't need the Torah, man. Okay, we're learning these things and we're applying it and we're becoming these things, man. And we're overcoming the flesh, man, because there's certain things that are lawful, okay, that you can overindulge in and destroy yourself, man. You see? So, I think that, go back to Galatians. It might be. Let me see some more on this chat dealing with adoption. Okay. So going back to adoption, it said all previous debts were canceled, old family ties were legally ended, a new father's name was given, full inheritance rights were granted, status changed permanently. The adopted son was legally equal to a natural born son. So these Israelites, all right, that was born outside of the customs, they was being adopted back in under Yahushua, and they had equal, okay, rights as the natural born son, the circumcision. Okay? It said privileges of adoption. Paul applies this directly to believers, a new identity, okay, full inheritance, okay, permanent status. You see? So, yeah, man, that's the customs of adoption in the Greco-Roman Empire. It's not like the adoption today. Okay, when you think of adoption, no, they came, with certain rights and inheritance, and it was your status and your debts counseling, you know, that's what Yahushua did for us, okay, on a huge scale. All right, so let's go here. So going back, let's get this in. 18. All right, so this is the book of Galatians, chapter 4, and verse 7 says, now you are no longer a slave, but the Most High's own child. And since you are a child, all right, you are his child. The Most High has made you his heir. Okay? It says, before you Gentile, you Gentiles knew the Most High, you were slave to so-called gods that don't even exist. Okay? And you were slave to, pagan culture. As we were slave to American culture, black culture, nigger culture, whatever. We were slave to those things. You see? So now that you know the Most High, or should I say, now that the Most High knows you, why do you want to go back again and become slave once more to the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world? You are trying to earn favor with the Most High by observing certain days or months or seasons or years, okay? Which, we observe, Day of Atonement, the Passover, and as we learn more, we incorporate um, different high holy days, but that's not mandate. The Day of Atonement, all right, and the Passover is a mandate, okay, and the Sabbath, we reverence the Sabbath to the best of our ability, because one thing we can do on the Sabbath is not have sex. That's something that can be done on the Sabbath. It's to not have sex. Okay, you can't control, working certain things or being around a woman or, a cycle, these different things. Okay. Some brothers can keep more of the law than others. Some brothers can observe more high holy days than others and reverence the Sabbath, a little better than others. Okay. But it's not a competition, tick for tack. Everybody do what they can in this situation. Okay. So reading on Galatians 4 and 10, it says you are trying to earn favor with the Most High by observing certain days or months or seasons or years, man. And like I say, well, we, keep as a mandate the Passover, and that's super spiritual, man, because the Passover embodies Yahweh Shai. The Day of Atonement, those 2 days really, embody Yahweh Shai. Okay. It says, I fear for you, perhaps all my hard work with you was for nothing. Okay. It says, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to live as I do in freedom from these things, for I have become like you Gentiles, free from those laws. You did not mistreat me when I preached or when I first preached to you. Now, did Apostle Paul abandon keeping the law? No. Okay. He just understood there was no justification in the law. Okay. So he wasn't destroying himself trying to be perfect in the law. Okay. Of course, he kept the law. He kept living how he was living. You see, but he didn't put that burden of trying to be perfected in the law. Just like the Israelite foreigners, he wasn't putting that burden on them, okay, to be perfected in the law. You see, it says, surely you remember that I was sick when I first, all right, brought you the good news. But even though my condition, all right, even though my condition tempted you to reject me, you did not despise me or turn me away. No, you took me in and cared for me as though I was an angel from the Most High, and even Yahweh Shah Hamashiach himself. Where is that joyful and grateful spirit you felt then? I am sure you would have taken out your own eyes and given them to me if it had been possible. Okay? So he's telling them, look, y'all, have tried to take on this law, and now there's bitterness and resentment and also competition. He was like, when I was there, it was all love, you know? But trying to, be perfect in that law, like I said, and all this gonna bring is strife, contention, it's gonna fall short. Okay, that wasn't the way. How was shot, lighten that load, man. To where we can show brotherly love. We can, you know, we can be pleasing to our power. Okay, without the strictness of the law in this flesh. Okay, it says, have I now become your enemy because I'm telling you the truth? Those false teachers who are so eager to win your favor, but their intentions are not good. They are trying to shut you off from me so that you will pay attention only to them, just like Jake today. That's why they try to discredit us, they slander us, and it's such a campaign, to be against the prophets. It's this big campaign to be against, the apostles and elders of GMS, GMS. And they run these slander campaigns to, alienate people from us and only listen to them and they madness. Okay, so that's why they push, this slander. Okay, they push, they demonize us. And, they want to discredit us. Okay, to isolate, people from us and only listen to them. But hey, it is what it is because the elect gonna be the elect, man. The elect gonna hear Yahweh Shai and follow Yahweh Shai. Okay? It says they are trying to shut you off from me so that you will pay attention only to them. If someone is eager to do good things for you, that's all right. But let them do it all the time, not just when I'm with you, man. Niggas, man, and these niggas, they love to, play like they have your best interest in mind. Okay? They're just, niggas are scam artists, man. Okay? So Jake love to play like they have the church best interest in mind. That they just putting themselves, the reason they're being, talked about. No, you're being talked about because your doctrine is off, man. The only reason you're brought up is because of doctrine. Okay, but they're making it seem like they're just being persecuted for your sake, and it's because they care about you so much that all these videos is coming out on them. Nah, man. Okay, you see, Jake is off. You see, and Jake is misleading a lot of Israelites, but at the same time, everything is written. Everybody got to play their part. The blind got to lead the blind. So it got to be blind teachers and blind followers, man. Okay? But the true followers of Yahweh Shai, they're going to follow Yahweh Shai, man. They recognize the voice of Yahweh Shai. Okay? Through the prophets, man. Through the true prophets, man. Okay, verse 19 it says, "Oh my dear children, I feel as if I am going through labor pains for you again, and they will continue until Yahweh Shai is fully developed in your lives." Okay, so the Apostle Paul, he trying to cultivate Yahweh Shai in the church of Galatia, man. All right, and you had these niggas that come behind them and try to tear down Yahweh Shai through the burden of the law. Okay, so Apostle Paul, like, no, I gotta develop Yahweh Shai in y'all, man. Like, I gotta start back over from the beginning and birth you again in Yahweh Shai. Okay, it says, "I wish I were with you right now so I could change my tone, but at this distance, I don't know how else, all right, to help you, So he's getting on them, man. You see, and he had, be, blunt and harsh because this is salvation. This is serious, man. Okay, verse 21. Tell me, you who want to live under the law, do you know what the law actually says? Okay, the scriptures say that Abraham had two sons, one from his slave wife and one from his freeborn wife. The son of the slave wife was born in a human attempt to bring about the fulfillment of the Most High's promise. You see, it was a human attempt, and trying to keep the law, that's a human attempt to try to be justified by, the law, man. That's a human effort. Okay, and we will fall far short every time. It says, but the son of the freeborn wife was born as the Most High's own fulfillment of his promise, which was Yahweh Shai. And their son that was born, Isaac, was Yahweh Shai, man. That's heavy. Okay? So even the birth of Yahweh Shai was symbolic of us being born into liberty. So even the birth of Isaac, was us. It's like the birth of Isaac was us being born unto liberty. Okay, us being born in the spirit under Yahweh Shai. Okay, which Isaac, if you can receive it, was Yahweh Shai, man. It said these two women serve as an illustration of the Most High's two covenants. The first woman, Hagar, represents Mount Sinai, all right, where Moses went to get the law. He was called to the top of Mount Sinai. The Most High dealt with him, and he came down with the law. Okay, he said represents Mount Sinai, where people received the law that enslaved them. Okay, because the law, all right, trying to keep the law in his body to be perfected and justified, all right, by the law in his body is enslavement, man. Okay, because it can't be done. We will never be, okay, not condemned. Verse 25, it says, and now Jerusalem is just like Mount Sinai in Arabia because she and her children live in slavery to the law. But the woman, Sarah, represents the heavenly Jerusalem. She is a free woman and she is, okay, our mother. Okay. And when we come out those chariots, man, the scriptures speak about heavenly Jerusalem. Okay, we're going to be fully liberated. Okay, in those new bodies to serve the Lord in his full capacity, man. Okay. The law is going to work for us, man, not against us in those new bodies. Okay, so we're going to be free from the condemnation of the law because the law is going to be in us, man. Okay, it says, as Isaiah said, rejoice, O childless woman, you who have never given birth, break into joy and break into a joyful shout. You who have never, all right, you who have never been in labor. For the desolate woman now has more children than the woman who lives with her husband. Okay, and these are the children being born in Yahweh Shai. Okay, in the spirit. This is us being birthed in Yahweh Shai in this time, man. Okay. You see that? Because the Most High finna clear out 2/3. You see? The children of the flesh, man. Okay? But those born in Yahushua, that's what's finna repopulate the earth in righteousness, man. Okay? The men, all right, women, and the families is gonna be delivered. That's who's finna populate the earth. So little one should become 1,000, a small one, a strong nation. But it begins with being born in Yahushua first. Okay? It said, but you are now being persecuted by those who want you to keep the law, just as Ishmael, the child by the human effort, persecuted Isaac, the child born by the power of the Spirit. But what does the scripture say about that? Get rid of the slave and her son. It also show you the heathen have nothing to do with this inheritance. Okay? For the son of the slave woman will not share the inheritance with the free woman's son. So, dear brothers and sisters, we are not children of slave women. We are children of the free woman. Okay, which is children of the promise. You see? And that promise was, confirmed through Yahushua. Okay? And now we follow Yahushua back to that glory. You see? So, that's the point, Lord will, you brothers. All right. And you sisters edified once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful